Good morning and welcome to Tee It Up Talks. Conversations that are real, relevant, and applicable about today's hot topics and more. This morning, we're going to kick it off with a good friend of mine, Jerry Ratchford. Jerry, kick us off, man. Talk to us about what's up.
Men that could have detained this young man, but they are afraid of us, period. I'm sorry to say that. Law enforcement are afraid to deal with African Americans. Instead of talking and using words, violence has become the key part of their life, and they justify it by being fearful. And until they stop being fearful and come to the table and discuss ways of training and things of that nature, I don't think we can move forward at this time because of fear.
Gotcha. I hear you. Jay, what's your thoughts on that? What's going on? Because you're out there on the West Coast. How are things going? What's the feeling out there on the West Coast?
It's funny out here in Portland. I know Trump called in. I don't know what type of police unit it is out here, but like if you walk the streets out here, you'll see uh, it looks like army men with big guns. So already that's just frightening. Being a black man in Portland. Topped with driving around black in Portland. It's just so many many thoughts. It feels like even like in my career, the higher I climb my career, it's even the more scared I get, just from moving around different places. So many mixed emotions. But I just continue to lean on the Lord.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Gabby, what's your thoughts?
It's tiring. I'm tired of hearing about it. It seems like a never-ending cycle. It feels like at this point, I guess, and it has always felt like that, but it's being publicized the fact that African American men are being hunted down. Um, and it really has opened up. I don't know if it's the political environment or just the support, but it really has opened up the actual racism that some people may have not shown previously. I know, like Jonathan was stating, I'm in the corporate sector, so not very many that look like me when it comes to the meeting rooms and that kind of thing. I'm also in management, and it's been kind of tense, even at work. It's been really, really tense. So just trying to hang in there and be a positive light, um, because we're going through a lot.
Gotcha. True. Lamont, talk to me a little bit. I know you had some challenges this week. I wanted to hear a little bit about that story.
I think about what happened is becoming so prevalent. It didn't shock me as to what happened, but the people that are coming out of the woodworks that are showing themselves is really what's been shocking. I've worked with my boss for many years now, and he came into the office the other day as I was sitting talking to him, and he sat down and he said, "Well, I think that the guy should have been shot. He had a warrant, and they done the right thing." And I mean, it just came out of the blue, and I turned around, and I was like, "Really?" And I had no words, and I was at work, and you're trying to do your job and keep your composure, but yet and still that rage built up, and so it was a real challenge to see people in their true light, so to speak, and how they really feel about certain instances and situations. It's been a real challenge, to say the least.
Gotcha. Keith, what's your thoughts, man?
Well, that what Lamont said is telling. And when the things first happened with George Floyd, I had maybe two coworkers that actually reached out. Two white coworkers reached out to talk about it, and I work with a whole lot more than that.
Yeah.
And that was telling because they were genuine. And the fact that it was just two out of so many um, said a lot about people's mindset. And I know some of them may not know how to approach it or may not feel comfortable, but I realize that there's a spectrum of people out there, from those that, you know, feel like, you know, there is an injustice, to those that feel like, you know, people deserve what they got, to people in the middle that don't know what to think. And try to be optimistic, but it's tough when you see it happening over and over.
Gotcha. Michaela, coming from, you know, college setting, UNC, what's your thoughts on it?
So I guess because they're college students, they kind of try to come off as being more open-minded. So we did get a lot of, you know, people post, since we're doing virtual learning, but like people post about injustice. But on campus, it's not a lot of support, like physical support, like in your classrooms. Professors didn't really talk about it when we started classes. I had one professor kind of mention, if you felt like I was, because he's a white man, if you felt like I was being, you know, and being kind of biased or whatever, please contact me. If you have any thoughts or feelings, please contact me. But student-wise, it's not too bad, but faculty, it is like very silent.
Gotcha. Jen, you have anything you want to add on that?
I think the whole situation is sad, and it makes me fear for my son because he's 15 and he's going to be driving soon. And he's innocent right now, but because he's Black, I mean, he can't change that. And like Jerry said, there is a fear. Just by being Black, there's a fear. And it's like, that's the weapon against them. But I think there needs to be a lot of, like someone said, a lot of training needs to be done with the police department. There's a lot of bad apples in the police department. It doesn't mean that every police officer is bad. So when we say, you know, defund the police or cut, you know, some of the budget, we're not saying that to cut it because they're all bad. But there are some bad ones that's making it hard for everybody of color. So I just hope with this new election coming up that some changes will be made. And like Jay said, I mean, everybody's gonna have to stay prayerful. We gotta pray for this country. We're not in a good state right now.
Gotcha. Thank you. No, great conversation there. Jerry, I wanted to pivot back to you because you were talking about fear and then training, being, like I say, being part of that system. How can we affect change with that? Or how do we either push our police chiefs, our sheriffs, our elected officials to move forward in some type of restructuring, reorganization, or additional training?
It's tough because there's only one Black guy on our sheriff's department and one Black guy in our police department. So every time we have a function in a church setting, they send those two guys. And I made a comment to them is that send somebody else. We know them, but we need to know everybody else in your organization so our community is well rounded with who they're dealing with. Don't just drive by, because they'll drive by your neighborhood. I know this about everybody. They'll drive by your neighborhood, but they won't stop. And the only time my kids interact with them is if they see it on TV. And the first thing that my daughter told me was, Dad, I'm afraid of the police. I'm like, why? Because everything that they see on TV. But we have to get out in the community. We have to go to the sheriff's department and ask for meetings with the sheriff and the police chief and our city councilman. But the thing is, we can't go in trying to kick the door down all top. You got to go in so they at least hear you. And then once they hear you, we can make moves. But if we go in trying to kick it down, they're going to shut down real quick and think everybody's like that. And that's where we are. Even myself working in the juvenile detention center now, I just got moved to supervisor. But a lot of kids that I deal with are us. And they're there for things for murder and on up. And the first thing they say is, well, I don't trust the police. I'm like, why? I understand our community is what it is, but we have to make amends ourselves first in order to move forward. I don't think Black lives really matter until we take heed and say we respect ourselves, and that's how we're going to our community to deal with that, with those police officers, with the police chief, the sheriff. We respect ourselves first, and we go in with them understanding we respect who we are, and we're going to demand respect, but yet we're not going to just kick the door down. Come to the table, have a plan. What is your plan? I see no plan working right now from government on down. It's about fear. The training part, I have a book I have to give you, Rashad, is diversity training that they have. It's about 15 minutes. That's the training session for police officers to deal with minorities. 15 minutes, that's it. My daughter can do that in 5 minutes and move on with her life and be like, Dad, I've never learned anything. Because it's not teaching. They don't deal with us. They feed us with a long handled spoon. They feed you, they give you what you want to give, they give you, and they move on because they think, well, obey the law. Follow what I say. Just because you have that badge on your chest does not mean you get respect. It used to say protect and serve, not shoot and kill. That's what it is now. We're gonna shoot and kill you, move on, and the justification is, well, you was resisting. Resisting is the weakest charge out there. Because if you move your hand, they say you're resisting, they give you a right to put their hands on you. We need to educate our community on what we can do to deal with them because they're not trying to deal with us. They're not coming to the table. We have to go to them. They don't have forums in our community. I don't know about your community, but they're not having forums in our community to work with us and deal with the problem. Communication is key. I can't say it enough until we sit down with them at the table with an agenda that's going to benefit all. I'm biased because I work in the field, and I heard Ms. Saunders say there's good and bad officers, but why does the officers that are good not hold the ones that are bad accountable? I'm held accountable. You're held accountable on your job. So we're not going to hold our own accountable. How can we move forward? You know, they say blue lives matter, Black lives matter, all lives matter. Until we are respected, no lives matter to me. Because the first time you hurt my family, I'm going to be in jail because I'm going to react off of feelings and not think about what's going to happen next because of everything we've seen right now. So until they come to the table and discuss these things, I don't think we can move forward because they're not taking us seriously. But we also have to take our own selves seriously.
Gotcha.
We have to hold ourselves accountable and come with a strong agenda.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. No, that's great. That's a great segue too, Keith. I wanted to come to you on that because I think a lot of times that's where our challenge is not coming to the table with an agenda. Like we may come to the table, but what is it that we want from what we're getting out? What we need to come with data. We need to come with expected outcomes, and just from your background, just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
So if you think back a month and a half or so, there were protests were going on here in Charlotte, and there was a list of things put forth in front of the police department. It was 8 items or 12 items. I can't remember how many it was. Things they wanted to see happen. And you heard a response from the police that said, yeah, we've done some of these things, and then it kind of died down, and now you don't hear anything else about it. There needs to be a sense of deliberateness about follow through, and having a plan and having a list of outcomes is definitely required. It also means we have to have leadership in place that can execute, and leadership that's respected. I will say that some of the voices and some of the talking heads you hear on our local news don't necessarily garner that respect. And that may be just because, the loudest voice gets the attention, but it's not necessarily the voice that we want to be heard. And a lot of times that detracts from what we want to accomplish. Because at the end of the day, we all want to be treated fairly, and everybody wants opportunities to be successful. And for some reason, some people just don't understand that the way things are set now, it's not fair. And and I don't have all the answers, but I mean, I think, having a set plan to get to those points would get us there, and that plan, we talk about defunding the police. I think that's the concept is dead on, but the terminology hurts it because people hear defund and they all I'm not think, oh, I'm losing out, I'm not getting what I deserve. And that in itself becomes another obstacle to overcome. So then you have to take the time to explain, well, we're not talking about taking money away. We're talking about taking resources and helping the police do some of the things that they're not equipped to do, like deal with people that are in extreme emotional stress. First thing you call 911 is send a police officer and the person gets shot when they actually need mental health.
Yep.
So, in addition to having a clear set of outcomes, we need a clearer message and not just something that's, catchy phrase, because that detracts too.
Yes.
That's kind of where I am.
No, and I think that lends to what Jay was saying. Sometimes you can't. There are times you have to knock the door down, but sometimes you just gotta kind of creatively get in the door so that you can remove some of those hurdles out the way, or so that if you can slide in the door, you can open the door wider for the rest of us to come on in. And so I agree that sometimes that hurts. And Gabby, I wanted to pivot to you, one, to get your thoughts on coming to the table with a plan, but also about this lady, Breonna Taylor. We're still stuck with nothing happening with her case and what's going on. And now all of a sudden I'm starting to see where people are trying to dig up dirt or find things on her that may or may not be true. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that, Gabby.
I do feel like we need a plan. I do feel like we, I guess, as a culture, actually need to come together and stay consistent. Even with, for example, the NBA just recently, they boycotted for like a day, and then they're back to playing and that kind of thing. I just feel like we do need some type of plan and consistency on our end, whether it be through finances and banking, trying to make like an economic difference. I'm all for boycotting if we're all doing it together, enough to make an impact, that kind of thing. And I do feel like we have to come to the table in a manner where we're going to be heard. But in that same light, I do also feel like some of it is not necessarily training, but it's racism. It's racism. It's not what's been trained as far as a position or at their job, but this has been trained to them since they've been children. Like, they're racist and they do not care for our success, for us to have equality. So that's a completely, I guess, different problem or thing to address. There's one thing for someone to be fearful of me because of the color of my skin versus someone that does not want me around because of the color of my skin. So I think there's two things to address. And then as far as Breonna Taylor is concerned, personally, I feel like African American women are at like the bottom of the bottom. And when it comes to support, I feel like we get it the least, even from our own men at times. I do not feel like we are uplifted, remembered, protected. You can even see, you're mentioning how like the media is pushing things, but you can also see how quickly the media forgot about her. And it's been this continual, like, remember her, wait. And then now we have another instance and we've completely kind of just dissected away from her completely. To the point where, yes, she's on the billboards and the magazines, but you don't see the same fight. You don't see the same concern. And that just goes back to, like Jerry was stating, where we have to actually care about ourselves. women, we have to care about each other. Men, you all have to stand up and care for us, because you can definitely see the difference in the lack of concern for an African American female that was gunned down by the police versus an African American male.
Absolutely. No, great. And great segue. When you were talking about coming to the table, it reminded me of King and that group SELC during the times of the bus boycotts. I mean, they when they were trying to work with the Montgomery Improvement Association, I mean, they wouldn't come to the table in good faith. No, so the challenge then became that it pivoted from the fight for equality to integration, because they felt that we could never get equality without the integration. And sometimes many people say that was maybe the biggest challenge, or that was a settle that the movement had. Was the fight was really for equality, but we had to settle for integration. And so I think we still fight that, because even though we're integrated, equality is still not there. We're still not equal. We're still not seen as equal. So that's kind of where we are. And I want to pivot over to Jay, and then I want to go down. I think Amaya is on. We have a high school student who wrote a brilliant essay when some of these things first kicked off. I want to give her a chance. But Jay, I want to go to you because Gabby talked a little bit about the NBA and some of the things that they did. And I know you being in Portland, doing some things with Nike, I know you probably have some thoughts on what's going on in the sports world and how they're viewing or how they're trying to use their platform.
Yeah, LeBron's my favorite player, of all time. So usually I respect LeBron for all that, he's done. I still respect him now, but I think the act of not playing the other day, I don't think it resonated with me enough, because times were more troublesome before the NBA went to the bubble more than they were now. So I say, if you weren't going to play the whole game on Game 5, I think you should have never went to the bubble, in period. I think, I think that's more of a standpoint. That's more taking action than not playing Game 5. Now, I hate to use the word hypocrite, but now you're like a hypocrite, because now you have to come back and play, Game 5 when you sat out. We tried to make a point and sat out. So I think they tried to make a point, but I don't think that they thought about what it would be like the next day. I think they were trying to make I would say a impact in the moment and not more thinking about the future. So I think if you would have thought about the future, I don't think you would have went to Orlando to play in the bubble. I think that's making more of an impact than just sitting out one game.
Gotcha. And I would agree. I think my view on it was kind of very similar, although I do understand the importance, because actually, the Milwaukee Bucks, they just didn't play.
Right.
So that basically forced everyone else to make a decision, and that decision would have been to not play, because it wouldn't have looked good if Milwaukee decided not to play and all the other teams played. And I think it did give a chance. While I agree, I think they did it without a plan, but I think the reason is because they didn't have a plan, and so in the moment they wanted to basically, it was their chance to stop time, to freeze time,
Sure.
so they could have an opportunity to create a plan. I mean, when you have someone that never really gets political, and my favorite player of all time, Michael Jordan, but now he's making statements with the owners and having them come to the table and have conversations in general, that was great. I mean, his statement was, I come to you as not as a former player or not as an owner, but I'm coming to you today as a Black man.
Sure.
And that was a conversation he was having with, billionaires that basically run the NBA in general. So I thought that was good. I agree that probably basketball shouldn't have happened, but I do understand that while many of those players are multimillionaires, there are a lot of those players that don't make a lot of money. They make league minimum. To us, it's a lot of money, but to them, they're taking care of their entire family, and their entire family haven't had anything. So they're, if they don't show up for work, they don't get paid, which means that's food off of aunt, uncle, cousin, grandma, everybody's table, because they're supporting that entire family. So I do understand that point as well, but I appreciate those thoughts. That's some great conversation, and we definitely have to hold them accountable as well, for sure. One cool thing I think that's coming out of that also is each of the owners have stated that all of the arenas that are used for basketball will now be used for voting stations. So each arena will be available to be used for voting. So that creates a large enough space to get as many people in to vote safely as possible. That's a huge deal for us now during the pandemic. So while it's small and it doesn't change the whole dynamic, because I agree with Gabby, at the end of the day, a lot of these people are just flat out racist, and you can't teach that out, not at the point of where they are in their lives. But if we can make those small steps, I think it makes a difference. But I want to pivot over to one of our youngest members today, Amaya Summers. She's a high school student, and I just wanted to get her thoughts on what's going on. How you doing, Amaya? All right, go ahead. What's your thoughts on what's going on right now, Amaya?
I don't know, it's kind of a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I know you wrote a small essay before. You kind of talked about your thoughts. You want to share any of that or say anything about that essay? You think you did on Facebook?
Yeah, I think in that I was really just talking about that people are kind of missing the whole point of what Black Lives Matter really means, because I even see it within some of my own, like the other sides of my family, because they're focusing on a lot of the wrong parts of it and are talking about what people shouldn't do and shouldn't say, or how they could have gotten out of that situation, or what they should have done differently so that wouldn't have happened to them. But at the end of the day, it's not about what they did to deserve it. It's about why is it still happening.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Great point. Thank you for sharing that with us, for sure. And I wanted to kind of pivot over, and I know at some point Jerry's going to have to jump off, so I wanted to get his thoughts on how do you use your platform, Jerry? What is it that each of us can do, or what is it that you do with the platform that you have to kind of keep things moving forward?
Righteous is the thing, because I don't want to promote hate, but I want our young people to understand, because I work with a lot of young kids, and I want them to understand that you have a voice, but with that voice comes responsibilities. You can't be all reckless with your platform and just put hate speech out there, because that way people look at you, and when you're trying to make another valid point, they look down on what you've already said. Mr. Gabby said something I thought was very important, that they're trying to find all the negative in Breonna Taylor's life from her past.
Yep.
What does that have to do with her being shot and in her own home? So when we look at what we're doing, your platform is very important, because everything you do, people are looking at your yesterday. And if you can't control your own narrative, someone else will write your own narrative for you. So when you're putting things out there on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever you put, it has to be in the sense that it's uplifting, but yet meaningful. I had said something the other day, a lot of people called me and said, well, what did you mean by two heavens? I said, I meant by two heavens that there's not a white heaven or a black heaven, there's heaven. And just because you think you're a Christian doesn't mean I'm a less Christian than you because I don't see your views. We can agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, racist behavior still tries to trump everything that's going on in America today. Everything is based on racism right now. And as I try to put my thing out there, is trying to be positive, but yet get my point across that you can't use my platform as a racist platform, because everybody's held accountable. I hold my own community accountable for the things that we do, and I hold the other community accountable for the things that they do. I can't get out here and support a black man killing a black man, but then if a white man kills one of ours, I lose my mind totally. We have to be held accountable across the board, because wrong is wrong. And if we're not going to hold ourselves accountable, how can anyone else hold us accountable? Or how can we get the same respect that somebody else wants? You know, when our community says Black Lives Matter, and I say that a lot of times, Black Lives does matter. But we can't have a riot today and supporting the movement, and then we shoot up 16, 17 people 15 minutes after we walk down the street with a Black Lives Matter. I think that's what happened in Charlotte, that they had the big, riots and everything. And shortly after that, there was a drive-by killing in our own neighborhood. But yet we're tearing up everything around us, but we're tearing our own selves down as we tear up everything else. So we have to use our platform to get the word out, to be intentional in what we're saying. Say what you mean what you say. Put it out there. And then those that don't agree with it, that tells who they are and where they stand. You can't say, I need to listen to the police. Well, I got my hands up and then I get shot. What's that excuse? Why did I get shot? I had my hands up. Well, you tell me not to move. I don't move. And you shot me. Then the first thing you say, well, he looked like he was reaching for something. So we have to put everything out there that's intentional in the movement that we're moving, the direction that we're moving in. Because if we don't, no one is going to take us seriously. No one's going to take us seriously. We have to be intentional in everything that we put out there, in a sense that we're being heard, not just seen, but we're being heard. Because people see us. It's like the book, The Invisible Man. They see us, but yet we're still invisible to them. But the more we put it out there, the more positive we put out there, and not put the hate, but put positive things out there to uplift not just our community, but our nation as a whole. I told someone, I can't help what happens in Chicago, but I can help what happens in Alexander County. That I hope that what we're doing in Alexander County can filter to Chicago, because I'm not in Chicago. I'm not in California. I'm not in New York. But right here in North Carolina, what I do here in my area can help build somewhere else if I take the motions to move forward with it. That's how I see it. It's positive that way.
Gotcha. Michaela, what's your thoughts on using your platform?
So at UNC they have Black Student Movement and also Black Congress, and I guess Black Congress is a more radical group, and they kind of are very limited. Like, they only let Black students join, and they do have like town halls and stuff like that, but most of the time it's just led by Black women and Black women on campus. And what they're really, it's important because when we have conversations about violence in our community, we kind of do it with care, but then like people kind of put down Black Lives Matter with the argument like Black on Black crime is also happening. And so I think it's important to like, yes, hold each other accountable, but like when other people kind of use Black on Black crime to put down Black Lives Matter, it's also very, it's not very constructive. It's just like kind of making it less like, oh, the police are okay with killing because if we're okay with killing each other, which they're both not right, equally.
Gotcha. That's so true. And I use the term pimp. I mean, at the end of the day, what happens is when we have one of these instances, the first thing someone that doesn't want to agree with or that looks down upon either Black Lives Matter or the fact that police did something wrong is they bring up Black on Black crime. Well, look, don't pimp Black on Black crime when something happens with a police officer. If you really care about it, let's be a part of the solution when those things aren't coming up. So a lot of times I think, some of those talking heads on some of those news stations that always want to bring up Black on Black crime when something happens with an officer and a Black person, they aren't coming, again, they don't come to the table in good faith. It's just a way to kind of, once again, pimp an issue that we know that is an issue that people are working on. Gabby, I wanted to come to you about platforms as well. What's your thoughts about how you use your platform? You have a great platform in your social media pieces, some great things that you're doing out there. How do you think you could use your platform or others could use a platform like you have to kind of move the conversation forward?
I just think actually having the conversation like you're doing now, we're definitely just speaking about it a little bit more. I know as for myself, I guess like Jonathan was saying previously, the higher up you get, I guess the less connected you can feel or possibly be. You kind of get in this space where I like your people don't like you and they don't like you either. So I'm just real big on learning, earning it, and then returning it. So whatever I can do to acknowledge what's going on, to speak about it, we do have to take care of ourselves. So just pushing out mental health and things like that. A lot of the times we get into situations with police because of the systematic racism that has been going on for years and for years. So yes, we're in poor neighborhoods. We have less. So we've gone to drugs. There is violence. There's been abuse. We have mental health issues. So there is a lot we just have to fix ourselves and take care of ourselves. Even if you haven't gone through all of that, just being Black is tough. I was actually on a call yesterday with some Black women, and we were talking about mental health issues. And it's just heartbreaking because everybody has been through so much. And then you have to turn on the TV and see this kind of thing. And it's just a lot for everybody to deal with. So definitely vocalizing resources, whether it's financial resources, mental resources, support, holding each other accountable. So normally when I'm writing my pieces, if I'm talking about one side, I'm talking about the other as well. And just making sure that I myself, if I know I have a voice, I'm not accepting it. I wrote a piece, I guess like a couple of weeks ago, and definitely saw a few of my little followers trickle away because it was probably a bit much. It was on feminism and how it doesn't necessarily apply to me and how I have to be I guess noticed, or how I have to consider what groups I'm following and what I'm actually pushing for, because you can get so caught up in a narrative and you're not even actually supporting yourself. But not being afraid of that and not concerning myself with that kind of thing, and making sure that I'm just continuing to push out the truth and make people uncomfortable. Especially at work. It's been nice. I was so happy to put Happy Juneteenth in my email signature. When it came around and sent it out, I left, so I had to go on delegation, but I was just so excited to put it in the signature. Like, you all have a great weekend. Happy Juneteenth, regardless how it makes you feel. And I think we have to do a little bit more of that because we're here. So it's going to have to be equality. I think it's clear that we're not accepting it. It has been some violence. Buildings have been torn down, but we're not accepting it. So,
Absolutely. Keith, what's your thoughts, man, on using your platform and how to maximize it?
Wow, there were so many things that were said that I kind of wanted to touch on, but I'm gonna answer the question.
Well, I'll tell you what. Go ahead and touch on those, and then if you have time to pivot back to that, then you can, no problem, man.
First thing I want to talk about was the Black on Black crime and that whole myth. Back in June, I was doing some reading, and there was a study done by Harvard that actually detailed or broke down crime statistics based on race, and it had who was the victim, who was the aggressor, and what their race was. And what you found is that percentage-wise, there was not much difference between any of the nationalities in terms of who the aggressor was and who the attacker was, whether it was Black, white, Hispanic, or Asian. And a lot of that has to do with crimes happening within their own communities. So, the people that you're most likely around are the people that you're going to affect. And now rates in Black communities, because of economics and other things, might be a little bit higher than other communities. But statistically, in terms of percentages, it's no greater than in any other community. So that's one thing, Michaela, that you can point out and challenge people to look it up. And it's a study that Harvard did. If they don't believe you, but that's just a myth that's been perpetuated. It's like, it's like any other thing that's said that's people tend to hear a lot, but there's no truth to it. The other thing I wanted to touch on, it actually came up, something that Lamont had said, had to do with fear. And recently I was having a conversation with a Black coworker who had a conversation with previous manager that we both had. And that manager made the comment that his sons were going to have a harder time being successful than he did. And, he kept pressing them on, what's the point we're trying to make? He says, well, he's going to have to work twice as hard. And so at that point, he just lit into him and said, look, we've had to work twice as hard all of our lives. Nothing has ever been given to us. And I think now what we're seeing is that there's been a realization that the Good Old Boy Network is not there like it used to be.
Yep.
And so that's another level of fear, even on the corporate side, that we have to be aware of, that people are afraid when they see us being successful and seeing us doing a good job, because now there are more opportunities for us to advance, because there's a feeling of guilt in how there have been pay equity initiatives and things like that for men and for women too. So that's something that we need to be conscious of, that there will be people that will deliberately try to sabotage what you're doing out of fear. And I'm not talking about doing anything harmful to you, but I'm talking about economically, whether it's at your job or out in the social environment. So that's another thing we need to be conscious of. The more that we fight for our rights to be equal, the more somebody else is going to be afraid they're going to lose something that they have, and it's going to take away from what they have. And I think people fail to realize there's enough for everybody to be successful, and everybody to be able to enjoy the fruits of this earth. But some people don't view it that way. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was about having the plan, and circling back around on that. One of the former detectives from CMPD had made a point about how they had taken money and funded some jobs programs, some social programs within the Black communities, and they saw crime rate decrease. This was in the late 90s. And things worked so well that they took the money away. And once they took the money away, the cycle came back around and the crime and thing came back up. So we know the steps to take to lower crime and to have safer neighborhoods, but there's something else at work to cause that to happen, to pull that money away. And that's the part that kind of troubles me, is that when we've had a cycle of success and we've seen things happen, yet we refuse to do what we know works, there's another agenda that's at play. And it's one of those rooms that we're not in. It's one of those deals going on where we're not at the table. And somehow we've got to help break that up. I mean, those were kind of three things that I wanted to touch on.
Gotcha. Jen, did you have anything you want to throw in there on platforms, or particularly from a healthcare standpoint?
I think that with all the health disparities that's going on, we have to have a voice. I feel as a nurse practitioner, I have to be that voice for my patients. There's a lot of people who, and it's not because they don't have the money, it's that they don't have the resources. So they may not have transportation to be able to go to the doctor. They may have to decide that this month I'm going to take my medication and not eat. Those are the things that our Black people deal with on a daily basis. And I think that my platform, I have to continue to advocate, continue to be a voice in the emergency room, because we know that African Americans, you come to the emergency room and you're in pain. You ask for pain medicine, the first thing they're going to say is, why are you asking for pain medicine? You must be addicted. So there's definitely a difference in how you are looked at whenever you go to the hospital or any health facility. And so, there's a lot of work that has to be done on that level. But I think there's I think I just got to just be that advocate, like I said, and be a voice.
Gotcha. Amaya and Lamont, any thoughts over there on using your platform? I'm not sure.
Huh? I was asking my dad if he was gonna come over here. Okay. Honestly, I think you just have to be careful about how you use it and the message you're spreading when you use it, and kind of be mindful of who's watching.
Yep, absolutely. It's very true. It depends on, what you say and how you say it, and who you say it to makes a huge, huge difference. And well, we're at the point now that I definitely want to fire off what we call it the tee it up round, or the something to ponder moment. Just give everybody a chance to kind of just say what's on their mind, what the hot topic is for them, and how things are happening and what we can do to help move some of those things forward, and also give you a chance to shout out what you're doing, whatever your platform is, shout that out and let us know how we can help participate and move that forward. And Jay, I'm gonna start with you, man. Tee it up.
Yeah, I think one thing I tell myself all the time, as a huge spiritual person, I think of course the Lord is watching. I think the Lord is also intentional with what's going on. So I think, as we all know, it's got to be a blessing in this somewhere. So I would just, I always just lean us to, look for the blessing in what we're going through, as well as, continue to lean on one another, in regard to just positive sentiment. There's a lot of negative sentiment out there, so I think, just look for the flowers to bloom when the rain stops.
Gotcha. Awesome. Great. What's going over there? What's going on at Nike, man? What you got developing over there?
So we're crafting up holiday season. So holiday is getting ready to start. So working on a lot of brand marketing plans for holiday. Jordan brand and holiday is real big. We're actually working on the unveil for the Air Jordan 4 Fire Red that's coming out Black Friday. So my division will be the first sector of the company to, I would say, create content around that sneaker for the holiday season. So I'm just getting ready for that alongside of it, all the other day-to-day work. But we're tracking along.
Awesome. Great stuff. Keep pushing, man. We're there to support you for sure. 100.
I appreciate that.
Gabby. Oh yeah, Gabby. Tee it up for us. What's going on?
Just want to push self-care, mental and health-wise. There's a lot going on. So make sure that everyone is taking care of themselves, taking care of your family. Reach out, see how everyone's doing. I don't think we reach out to each other enough. And I put my info in the chat as far as my IG and email, so I can be contacted at any time. Would love for you all to check it out and share.
Go ahead. Shout it out. What is it though? Boss Mom Magic, right?
Yes, it is. So IG is Boss Mom Magic, and then website is www.bossmommagic.com.
Awesome. Check it out. Some cool, great content on there. She blogs, at least a few times a week. Some awesome stuff. Great content on her blogs as well. Yep. Keith, tee it up for us, man.
So my closing thoughts would be about taking care of yourself and learning how to be self-reliant. It's not a topic we've discussed in the past, but with everything that's going on, we need to be mindful of our surroundings and how to defend ourselves, how to make sure that we stay safe. And I encourage everyone to do the things they can, proactively to know how to take care of yourself, whether that is with lethal or non-lethal means, whatever you're comfortable with, whether it's pepper spray or firearm, however you're legally able to do it. Because at the end of the day, you are your own first responder. You are responsible for yourself, and that could be something just as simple as taking a first aid class. Knowing how to take care of yourself if you do get injured. So that's my piece.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Amaya or Lamont, you guys got any closing words?
Just remember, you don't have to fight every single little fight that comes your way. And sometimes be too tired to continue to educate people on the subject, and they have the knowledge. Everybody has smartphones, so at a point they're just choosing not to know.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that, Amaya. Michaela or Jen, how you guys want to close out? Well, tee it up for me.
For me, I think we got to continue to advocate. Like I've said before, we got to continue to educate. And then, as Jay said, I think we got to stay prayerful, and we got to know that God is in control of everything. At the end of the day, it's whatever His will is. And so just make sure that we are doing what God wants us to do, that we're following our purpose. And then just always show empathy for one another. I think this country has lost some of that, but we got to get back to empathy, like walking in someone else's shoes, and that's a big thing. So,
Mac, what about you?
Okay. I guess my advice would be like, don't read the comments. Like, on social media posts and stuff like that, because they can make you mad. And also, I guess I would say like read something you like to read. Nothing too heavy. You don't have to read anything like heavy, but just read for fun, and it's like really relaxing.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate everybody joining today. Just want to leave with something to ponder. As we all know, we got the news last night of the passing of the Black Panther himself, King T'Challa, my man Chadwick Boseman. As Keith salutes him with the Wakanda background there, appreciate that, man. That's pretty cool. Just one thought from him that came to mind that says, I think you realize how much you need to have people that you love. It's not as much about them loving you. It's about you needing to love people. And that's what I want to leave with. It's important that we love. And I think that's what we're missing a lot of in this world and society today. And to everyone, again, thank you all for taking the time to join Tee It Up Talk today. And, as we move forward, just remember, faith forward with grace, mercy, and love. God bless. Y'all have a great one.
Take care.